The first thing I did after being reborn was to tear up the marriage report Luis was about to submit. In my previous life, I desperately clung to Luis and married him, only to find out before my death that he had been secretly involved with Gloria for 40 years. In this life, knowing the truth, I won't be that foolish again. I'll take the initiative to step back and let Luis and the woman he's been longing for, Gloria, be together. If Luis wants to take care of Gloria, I won't object. If Luis wants to give half of his salary to Gloria, I won't object either. But I never expected Gloria's appetite to be even bigger than I thought. She actually set her sights on my college admission letter. Dream on! I firmly rejected Gloria's unreasonable demand the day after I refused Gloria's outrageous request and had a fallout with Luis. Luis and Gloria were caught red-handed in bed together. Chapter 1. In my past life, I never realized that Luis wasn't satisfied with me as his fiancé. Blissfully unaware, I clung to the engagement arranged from childhood and married Luis with a heart full of joy. Luis had a demanding job, and both my parents-in-law were in poor health. To allow Luis to focus on his work without distractions, I gave up the opportunity to attend college and devoted my entire life to taking care of his parents and raising our children. For 40 years of marriage, Luis and I spent more time apart than together. The days we truly lived under the same roof wouldn't add up to more than 2 years. As a woman, I had to care for his ailing parents while also raising our young children. One can imagine how difficult life was. I always hoped Luis would transfer back to my city to support me, even a little, but Luis never did, not even until the day I died. I had always thought he had no choice, that he was bound by circumstances. It wasn't until my death that I learned the truth. Luis wasn't trapped or helpless, he simply didn't like me. He didn't want to see me, his wife. He wanted to stay as far away from me as possible so he could care for the woman he truly loved, Gloria. Behind my back, he arranged a job for Gloria, pampered her, and doted on her endlessly. He went south for work because of Gloria. He went north for work because of Gloria. His heart was always with Gloria. Luis and Gloria were deeply in love, their affection mutual and unwavering. And me? I was nothing but a fool, played and ridiculed. A complete joke for an entire lifetime, only realizing it moments before my death. Chapter 2. I took my college acceptance letter from the bottom of the box and held it tightly to my chest. Tears of joy streamed uncontrollably down my face. It's so good. Everything is still in time. In my previous life, blinded by my love for Luis, I was determined to marry him and become his wife. I gave up the opportunity to attend college for the so-called love, staying at home and taking care of his ailing parents while enduring countless hardships. But this time, I won't make the same foolish mistake. I will go to college. I will carve out a future for myself. As for Luis, didn't he love Gloria? In this life, I'll willingly withdraw from this entanglement with Luis, letting him and Gloria be the ill-fated pair they desire to be. After calming myself, I walked out of the room and saw Luis sitting on a chair in the living room. On the table in front of him lay the marriage report he had prepared but hadn't yet submitted. Luis stared coldly at the report, his brows furrowed. Even when I entered, he didn't bother to turn his head. In my past life, Luis was always indifferent toward me. I never realized that it was because he didn't like me. I thought it was just his nature to be cold and distant. It wasn't until my death, when I saw the photos of him and Gloria together, his face lit up with a radiant smile, that I understood he wasn't incapable of smiling. He simply didn't want to smile at me. Luis, his brows tightly knitted, stared at the marriage report before him. Clearly, he was reluctant to submit it. The wedding date was decided by our parents. Although Luis didn't like me, he was a filial son who wouldn't go against his parents' wishes. For me, marrying Luis was considered marrying above my station. My parents were eager for me to marry a military officer to elevate our family's status. Now wasn't the right time to talk about breaking off the engagement. To prevent Luis from submitting the marriage report and binding our lives together as in the past life, I decided to act. I walked over to him and picked up the report. "Let me submit it for you," I said, without waiting for his response. I took the report and left. I found a secluded spot, tore the marriage report into tiny pieces, and tossed them into a nearby sewage ditch, watching the fragments of paper being carried away by the murky water. Leaving no trace behind, I let out a sigh of relief. For now, I didn't have to worry about marriage. The next step was to prepare for college. My parents had always wanted me to marry Luis as soon as possible. In my previous life, when they learned I'd been accepted into college, they did everything to convince me not to go. They kept preaching about the benefits of marrying Luis. Back then, I was so in love with Luis that I quickly gave in to their persuasion. I spent my life sacrificing for Luis, only to end up with nothing but regret. This time, I won't listen to my parents. I won't repeat the same mistakes. I went to find out what documents and expenses were needed for college before returning to Luis' house. As I approached the courtyard, I saw a car parked there. Stepping out of the car was a young woman carrying large bags, walking beside Luis. Chapter 3. Nothing has changed from my previous life. Gloria was openly brought into Luis's home under a justifiable excuse. Luis's reason for bringing Gloria here was that her brother had lost his life saving him. I had always believed Luis owed Gloria a life, so I thought it was only natural for him to care for her. Had Gloria not taken the initiative to reveal their true relationship, I would have remained clueless until my dying day. I stood by indifferently, watching Luis help Gloria carry her luggage into the room he had prepared for her. As if sensing my gaze, Luis stopped, turned around, and said, "You're back?" I hummed in acknowledgement, just like in my previous life. He introduced Gloria to me. "This is Gloria, my comrade's younger sister. She'll be staying here until she starts college." Until she starts college? My heart sank for a moment. A thought suddenly came to mind. Gloria's college was the same as the one on my acceptance letter, a university. In my previous life, I never thought too much about the relationship between Gloria and Luis. Gloria moved into our compound before Luis and I got married, and shortly after, she went to a university. But today, when I inquired about college enrollment details, I carefully reviewed a university's admissions list. There were only 3 spots available. One was mine, and the other 2 were for 2 boys I didn't know. Gloria's name wasn't on the admissions list, so how did she qualify to attend a university? At that time, the National College Entrance Examination had only been reinstated for a few years, and university spots were highly limited and could be reassigned. A chilling thought struck me. Could it be that my decision to give up college for marriage allowed Gloria to take my place? If that were true, did Luis have a hand in this? Could it be that he married me, knowing I'd sacrifice my college spot and stay behind to support him, just so his beloved Gloria, who wasn't even qualified, could attend university? I couldn't bring myself to believe that Luis could be so despicable. But then, I remembered Gloria's arrogant words at my deathbed in my previous life. "You've had the privilege of monopolizing Luis for over 40 years. Now it's my turn to enjoy our twilight years together." Gloria, who had shamelessly been the other woman for decades, wore her disgrace as a badge of honor. How could I not suspect Luis's involvement? Watching Gloria cling to Luis without the slightest pretense, I sneered internally. I said lightly, "You two carry on. I'll go make dinner." I had barely taken a few steps when Gloria's sickly sweet, pitiful voice drifted from behind me. "Luis, is my sudden arrival bothering you and Elena? I feel like Elena doesn't really welcome me." Chapter 4. The pretentious, syrupy voice made me curl my lips in disdain, and my disgust for Gloria reached its peak. I didn't bother to turn around, but Luis's voice came through clearly. "Don't worry, I promised your brother I'd take good care of you, and I won't go back on my word. As long as I'm here, no one will treat you poorly." Ha! So quick to defend her. In my previous life, was I truly blind and deaf? Luis and Gloria returned 2 hours later. By then, I had finished preparing dinner. Gloria, playing the part of a considerate guest, came into the kitchen to help carry the dishes. She even offered to serve the rice but only filled 2 bowls, one for herself and one for Luis. Her actions were as obvious as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Her intentions were so transparent that anyone could see them. I pretended not to notice her little schemes, grabbed a bowl, served myself, and sat down to eat with gusto. Luis and Gloria also sat down, but both froze the moment they saw the food on the table. There were 4 dishes on the table: spicy tofu, spicy potatoes, spicy pork ribs, and the only soup, green bean soup, was also topped with fiery red chili peppers. Both Luis and Gloria preferred light, bland food. as their eyes swept over the spicy dishes. Luis's gaze landed on me. I ignored him, keeping my head down and focusing on my food. In my previous life, I had always catered to Luis's preferences, cooking bland meals to suit his taste. But after being reborn, I had no intention of compromising anymore. I ate the spicy, flavorful dishes with relish, completely ignoring Luis and Gloria. Luis's expression darkened. Meanwhile, Gloria, with tears welling in her eyes, looked at Luis pitifully. Eventually, Luis couldn't bear it any longer. He stood up and said, "Gloria can't eat spicy food. Next time, don't add chili when you cook. I'll take Gloria out to eat tonight." Without sparing them a glance, I continued eating, completely indifferent to their departure. Once the two people I detested left, I continued feasting until I was completely stuffed. After finishing my meal, I cleaned the dishes, then took a walk outside to aid digestion. Luis and Gloria still hadn't returned by the time I got back. I went into my room, shut the door, and opened my suitcase. I pulled out the stash of ration tickets and money we had prepared for the wedding and began calculating my finances. This small stash was meant to be our wedding fund. Part of it came from my parents, who had scrimped and saved to prepare my dowry, while the rest was the betrothal gift from Luis's family. Since I was going to college soon, I would need money for travel, food, and daily expenses. There was no way I was going to hand this over to Luis. In my previous life, all this money had been pulled together after we got married and ultimately spent on Gloria's education. This time, I wouldn't be so foolish. The money and ration tickets would stay with me. I wasn't about to let anyone take advantage of me again. After securing the money, ration tickets, and my college acceptance letter, I took out all the wedding items from the suitcase. The bright red sheets, quilt covers, and pillowcases were no longer needed. Since I wasn't getting married, these items needed to be given away. Sandra, who lived in the compound, had always treated me well. Her daughter was getting married this month, so I decided to give the items to her. When Sandra saw me bringing the items over, she was surprised and asked me a few questions. I brushed them off with vague excuses. When I returned home, Luis still hadn't come back. I washed up, went to my room, and marked a red X on the calendar hanging on the wall. How wonderful! In just 20 days, I would leave this place and start my new life at college. Chapter 5. That night, I slept soundly. I didn't know when Luis came back. The next morning, I made myself a bowl of noodles. As I sat eating, Luis finally opened his door. Seeing me sitting there eating alone without even glancing in his direction, a look of surprise flashed across his face. I couldn't blame Luis for reacting this way, after all. I used to be hopelessly in love with him. I used to prepare everything for him meticulously. Since he didn't like spicy food, I never cooked anything with chili. Because of his sensitive stomach, I woke up early every morning to make millet porridge to help his digestion. I would walk him to the compound gate when he left for work and waited by the door every evening to welcome him home. In my eyes, Luis was a high and mighty emperor, while I was nothing more than a servant attending to his every need. Now, with this servant no longer putting the emperor first, it was no wonder Luis felt unsettled. Seeing that I had no intention of speaking to him, Luis had no choice but to walk over. "Gloria isn't familiar with the area yet," he said. "Last night, I took her out for dinner and showed her around before coming back." Was Luis explaining himself to me? Well, this was certainly something new. I continued eating my noodles, replying vaguely, "That's fine. It's your duty to take care of her. You don't need to tell me about it." Luis stood there in silence for a moment, as if he couldn't believe my reaction. After all, I had once been so infatuated with him. Luis was undeniably handsome, and many women admired him. Back then, I kept a tight watch on him, getting upset if he so much as spoke a few extra words to another woman. Now, my complete indifference to his relationship with Gloria must have seemed strange to him. He stared at me for a while before continuing. "Gloria's brother died because of me. From now on, she's like my little sister, and I'll take care of her. I've decided to give her half of my salary and ration tickets every month. In my previous life, after marrying Luis, I stayed home to care for his ailing parents. Out of his 40 yuan monthly salary, he gave me only 10. I worked tirelessly, waking up early and going to bed late, and even took on odd jobs to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Luis had been giving half of his salary to Gloria. How touching his devotion was. He didn't care about his parents, his wife, or his children. His heart was entirely for his beloved Gloria. My teeth clenched in frustration. I wanted so badly to slap that handsome face of his, but I held myself back. Take care of her all you want. I have no objections. Whether Luis gave half or even all of his salary and ration tickets to Gloria, what did it have to do with me? I had no intention of marrying him, let alone wasting my life taking care of his parents. I was curious to see how he would manage when all his money went to Gloria. How would his sick parents afford their medicine and food? Chapter 6. I quickly finished my noodles, tidied up, and returned to my room. Yesterday, I only got rid of the wedding sheets, quilt covers, and pillowcases. Today, I planned to clean out everything in my room. The books I used for the college entrance exam were no longer useful, so I decided to sell them. Anything I had prepared for Luis needed to be given away or thrown out. I shut the door and silently worked on packing up my things. I didn't even notice when Luis left. I sold the books as scrap, then took the handmade shoes I had prepared for Luis and sold those too. Anything I couldn't sell, I packed up and tossed into the garbage heap. I cut the red wedding decorations into pieces and threw them away as well. After finishing everything, I picked up a pen and marked another X on the calendar. 19 days left until I leave for college. I needed to start preparing for it. I went to the supply cooperative, not expecting to run into Luis and Gloria there. The two of them looked like a loving couple, picking out items together. Luis was being attentive, even helping Gloria select thermal underwear. Gloria, with a sweet and coy smile, said, "Luis, this is more than enough. You don't need to buy any more. I heard the place you're going for college is cold. Better to have extra, just in case." The two of them spoke warmly, as if no one else existed. Gloria was the first to notice me. She looked at me with a haughty expression and said, "Elena, you're here shopping too?" Hearing Gloria's voice, Luis finally noticed me. The look in my eyes, a faint smile with hidden disdain, seemed to make him uncomfortable. Gloria is leaving for college soon, so I'm helping her pick up some things, Luis explained, his voice awkward. As he spoke, his gaze fell on the pen, ink, and paper I was holding. "I already bought those for Gloria. You don't need to get them again." Where did he get the audacity to think I'd do anything for Gloria? I ignored Luis, paid for my items, and turned to leave. Luis followed me outside, calling my name twice. I didn't look back and quickened my pace. Behind me, I heard Gloria's timid voice, "Luis, I think Elena really doesn't like me." I went on to buy a few more items before heading home. When I opened the door, I found that Luis had already prepared dinner. Well, wasn't this a surprise? It seemed like the sun had risen from the west. Seeing me return, Luis invited me to eat. I glanced at the plain dishes on the table and shook my head. "I've already eaten outside," I said flatly. Luis's expression froze, but I didn't care. I headed straight to my room. A few minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. "What is it?" "Let's talk," Luis said. "Talk about what?" I asked coldly. "Elena, are you upset about Gloria?" "I'm only taking care of her because of her brother." "That's your business. It has nothing to do with me. So stop repeating it over and over," I interrupted, my tone sharp. Luis seemed taken aback by my impatience. He softened his tone. "Elena, we're about to get married. We're family. What's mine is yours." Ha! He still thought I was the same pushover from my previous life. My patience was wearing thin. I couldn't stand seeing Luis act so fake and insincere. "Luis," I said, cutting him off, "have you ever stopped to think about us? I think we should seriously reconsider this marriage." Chapter 7. I had planned to end the conversation about the wedding with Luis then and there, but before I could finish speaking, there was a knock at the door. Gloria's tearful voice sounded from outside. "Luis." I twisted my ankle. It hurt so much. Luis immediately left with the injured Gloria. Once gone, he didn't return. Of course, Didn't bother waiting for him. After washing up, I locked the door and went to bed. That night, I slept soundly and woke up feeling refreshed. The first thing I did in the morning was mark another X on the calendar. Then, feeling invigorated, I washed up. When I came out, I found that Luis had returned, carrying breakfast, steamed buns, soy milk, and fried dough sticks. When he saw me, he smiled, a rare sight. "You're up." I nodded and accepted the breakfast he handed me without a word. Sitting down to eat, he sat beside me. Last night, after Gloria twisted her ankle, she came down with a fever. I stayed at the hospital with her all night because I was worried. "That's the right thing to do," I replied coldly. I had always greeted him with warmth and smiles in the past. Never this indifference. Luis seemed unable to handle it. "Elena, are you mad at me?" "No, really not. Really not. What's there to be mad about? After all, in a little over 10 days, we'd be going our separate ways." Hearing me say I wasn't mad, the smile on Luis's face grew even wider. "Yesterday, I saw you buying pen, ink, and paper. Was it for Gloria? If so, why don't you come with me later to give it to her?" I raised my eyes to meet his and said slowly, word by word, "Luis, Gloria has your care. And that's more than enough. She doesn't need me. The things I bought are for myself and have nothing to do with anyone else." His expression darkened after my blunt response, but I paid no attention to his mood. Standing up, I said, "I have some errands to run. I'll be out for a bit." I went to the train station to inquire about tickets. Since a university is cold, I bought 2 sets of thermal underwear for myself along with toiletries before heading home. To my surprise, Luis was actually at home when I returned, seeing me carrying bags. He even reached out to help. I dodged his hand and carried my things to my room on my own. He followed me inside. "Your room seems to have fewer things now," he commented. I threw out what I don't need. Seeing my cold attitude, he fell silent for a moment before saying, "The wedding is in a few days. Tomorrow, I'll go with you to buy some things." What a surprise, Luis. Offering to accompany me shopping? It felt like the sun had risen from the west. I rejected him outright. "No need." Seeing my utter indifference, Luis fidgeted awkwardly, rubbing his hands. After a long pause, he finally forced out another sentence. "There's one more thing I need to discuss with you. It's about you going to college." I stopped unpacking and looked at him quietly. Luis hesitated before continuing. "This is what I'm thinking after we get married. You won't have time to attend college. Since you won't have time, why not voluntarily give up your spot to someone who needs it more?" Chapter 8. Hearing Luis's words, my mind went blank for a moment. Previously, I had only suspected that Gloria went to college because I gave up my spot. But now, after hearing what Luis said, I was almost certain of it. Those 2 shameless people, how dare they? Fueled by anger, I shot to my feet and glared at Luis with a piercing gaze. "Who do you want me to give my spot to?" I asked, enunciating each word. Luis was startled by my reaction. "You, what's wrong with you? I was just trying to discuss it with you." Discuss? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. In my past life, I had given him everything, treated him like a god. He didn't even bother to discuss this with me, he simply made the decision on his own. Now that I had no affection left for him in this life, he had no choice but to bring it up with me. "Luis. Oh Luis, don't you think you're despicable and shameless?" I stared him down and said slowly, "I won't give up my spot in college. If someone wants to go to college, they'll have to earn it themselves. If they want to take a shortcut through me, it's not happening." Luis hadn't expected such a strong reaction from me. He stammered, "I was just thinking, since we're getting married, you won't have time to go to college. Then let's not get married." I roared those words at him, my anger barely contained. His face darkened instantly, and he glared at me. "Don't push it. Elena, you're the one who wanted to get married. And now you're the one saying you don't want to. What do you take me for? Is marriage just a game to you?" I chuckled coldly. What was he pretending for? If he had any decency, he wouldn't have treated me the way he did in our past life. Now wasn't the time to completely fall out with him. So I swallowed my fury. I quickly packed a bag. I have something to do and will be going home for a few days. Luis followed me for a few steps. Why are you suddenly thinking of going home? I miss my parents, I replied curtly, hurrying downstairs without looking back. I planned to stay at home for a while and only return when it was time to start school. When my parents saw me, they were overjoyed, especially my mom, who immediately pulled me aside to ask endless questions, mostly about my relationship with Luis. I brushed her off with vague answers, knowing that I needed to prepare my mom for the news that I wouldn't be marrying Luis. I casually brought up Gloria on the 7th day of my stay. My mom instantly became alert. A single woman being cared for by him? That's not a good thing. You'd better go back and keep an eye on him. Luis is a catch if someone takes him away. What will you do? I'll just break up and find someone else, I replied nonchalantly. Don't say such things. Where will you find another man like Luis, handsome and with a good job? To my mom, Luis was a prized catch, and she refused to let me stay at home any longer. She practically forced me to go back and keep an eye on him. And just like that, I was chased out of my parents' house, with nowhere else to go. I had no choice but to return to Luis's place. As I opened the door, I heard noises coming from my room. Startled, I froze. Could it be a thief in broad daylight? I rushed to my room in a few quick steps. The scene before me made me gasp sharply. Chapter 9. My room was a complete mess. Everything had been turned upside down. Gloria hadn't noticed my presence yet. She continued rummaging through my drawers and boxes, even flipping over the blankets as she muttered to herself. How can it not be here? Where did she put it? I shouted furiously. What the hell are you doing? Who gave you permission to touch my things? Gloria jumped at the sudden outburst, but to my surprise, she quickly regained her composure. Do you even need to ask? Of course. Luis told me to. Luis actually let Gloria move in while I was gone? These two had no shame at all. My eyes burned with rage. Gloria, do you even have a shred of dignity? Get out of my room right now. But Gloria had the shamelessness of someone who felt invincible. She crossed her arms and smirked. Are you mad? Fine. I'll tell you the truth. While you were gone, Luis and I have been living together. He's been treating me so well, making me breakfast every morning, cooking dinner at night, even taking me on evening strolls. I'm telling you, Luis is really thoughtful. I swallowed down my fury and sneered. So, you like Luis? You want to marry him? For the first time, Gloria's expression stiffened. My blunt words caught her off guard. I stared at her coldly. You do realize he's engaged, right? Aren't you afraid of people talking about how shameless you are, living with an engaged man? What do I have to be afraid of? Luis and I are a perfect match, meant for each other. But you, have you even looked in a mirror? Do you really think you deserve Luis? This whole childhood engagement thing is outdated garbage. Luis told me everything. If it weren't for your parents forcing him, he never would have agreed to marry you. I believed those were Luis's true thoughts, but that didn't mean I'd let Gloria throw them in my face. You talk so much, but it all comes down to one thing. You're jealous that I'm the one marrying Luis. I smirked. You say I don't deserve him, and maybe you're right, but are you so sure that you and Luis are a perfect match? Look in the mirror. Gloria, you don't have a job. You don't have an education. We're exactly the same. What makes you any better than me? TSK. That's just your opinion. I'm about to go to college. Once I graduate, I'll be on the same level as Luis. And you'll be nothing. I narrowed my eyes. Oh, you're going to college? Which university? I took a step closer, my voice turning icy. Where's your college acceptance letter? Gloria? Why don't you show it to me? Chapter 10. Gloria was taken aback by my question, stammering. Why should I show you? Anyway, I'm not like you. I'll definitely go to college in the future. Just wait and see. Her expression was panicked. Although she tried to maintain a facade of calm, her darting eyes betrayed her. She was definitely up to something shady. But what in my room could be so valuable that she'd risk doing this? I looked around at my room, which was now a chaotic mess, and then at Gloria's ugly, smug face. The sight made my stomach turn. How could someone be so shameless? It was beyond anything I could imagine. I fixed Gloria with a cold, hard stare. Get out! Get out of my room right now. What if I don't? What are you going to do about it? Gloria taunted, staring back at me defiantly. Luis is the one who told me to move in. He said he wanted to take care of me himself. Oh, and he also said he's sick of you, that just looking at you makes him nauseous. The words from this young Gloria overlapped with the ones she had spoken to me when she was older in my previous life. Shameless people never change, whether in this life or the last. I let out a mocking laugh. Luis said that to you? You two must really be kindred spirits. Huh? Of course, she replied smugly. Luis doesn't like you. He's only marrying you because he's being forced to. If you had any self-respect, you'd bow out gracefully and stop putting him in a tough spot. And what makes you think you have the right to tell me to back out? What's your standing to say such a thing? Talking about shamelessness, if you're not the queen of it. I don't know who is. At least I'm Luis's legitimate fiancé. What are you? I stared at Gloria, enunciating each word clearly. Gloria, I know exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to use my absence as an opportunity to mess around with Luis. It's written all over your face. You want to seduce him. Plain and simple. Do you really think no one can see that? Let me tell you something. Someone as shameless as you will never succeed in your disgusting plans. My blunt words turned Gloria's face bright red with anger. Enraged, she lunged at me, trying to hit me, but there was no way I'd let her land a blow. I stepped aside, and with a loud thud, she fell flat on the ground. Before I could even enjoy the sight of her embarrassing tumble, Gloria started crying loudly. Wah! You're bullying me. It hurts so much. I'm in so much pain. Her quick change in demeanor left me momentarily stunned. Before I could react, Luis appeared with a dark expression on his face. Right in front of me, Gloria turned to him and complained. She started yelling at me the moment she came back. She accused me of being shameless and trying to seduce you, and when I tried to explain myself, she hit me. Look, I'm all bruised. She started sobbing again, playing the perfect victim. Luis believed her without a second thought. His forehead veins bulged in anger as he turned to me and shouted, Elena, how could you be so unreasonable? Gloria, pretending to be wounded, clung to Luis, who picked her up protectively and carried her away, leaving me standing there in disbelief. Chapter 11. The room fell silent, leaving me staring at the chaos Gloria had created. My emotions were all over the place. I had always thought that Gloria went to college because I gave up my spot after marrying Luis. But if that were true, why would Gloria be rummaging through my room, turning everything upside down? Aside from my acceptance letter and some money with ration tickets, there wasn't much else of value in my room. And Gloria wouldn't be looking for money or ration tickets. Luis already gave her half his salary. It didn't make sense for her to stoop so low as to steal. Could it be that she was looking for my college acceptance letter? But why? What could she possibly want with that? A chilling thought suddenly crossed my mind, something I had never considered before. What if Gloria didn't get into college because I gave up my spot, but instead, she used my identity to take my place? It would explain why, in my previous life, my acceptance letter had mysteriously disappeared from my suitcase. Back then, I had given up on the idea of going to college, so when I couldn't find the letter, I didn't think much of it. But looking back now, was it possible that Gloria had taken my acceptance letter and used it to replace me? In my previous life, the process of entering college wasn't as strictly monitored as it is now. If Gloria had forged my identity, it wasn't impossible. I also remembered how, wherever Gloria went to work, Luis followed. Could it be that, in my previous life, the two of them had been living as husband and wife all along, in secret? I had been trapped at home my entire life, so I never uncovered the truth, not until it was too late. This time, I wasn't going to let it happen. Luis came home late that night. He knocked on my door and said, Elena, let's talk. I opened the door and said flatly, what is there to talk about? If it's about Gloria, let me make this clear, I didn't hit her. She was rummaging through my things without permission. I told her to leave, and she came at me. She lost her balance and fell on her own. I wasn't about to stay silent and let Gloria's lies pin me down, nor was I going to let Luis question me. I said what needed to be said, whether he believed it or not was up to him. To my surprise, Luis didn't seem intent on defending Gloria. There's nothing going on between me and Gloria. Luis sighed. He reached out to hold my hand, but I stepped back, avoiding his touch. He looked shocked. After all, I used to chase after him shamelessly. Even if he didn't reach out, I would practically throw myself at him. For me to reject him now must have been unfathomable to him. My clear stance made Luis fall silent. His expression grew pained. Elena, there's nothing between Gloria and me. I've only ever seen her as a sister. You're overthinking it. Is that so? I asked, letting out a cold laugh. If I hadn't lived through everything in my past life, I might have believed him. But now, not a word he said sounded believable to me. Elena, whether you believe me or not, I want you to know that you're the only one I plan to marry. I feel a responsibility to look after Gloria, but that's all there is to it. She won't be staying here much longer. She'll be heading off to college soon. So could you, for my sake, get along with her peacefully until then? I couldn't let go of my suspicions. Had Gloria gotten into college by taking my spot? Or had she outright stolen my acceptance letter and used my name? And how involved was Luis in all of this? After all, even if Gloria had stolen my acceptance letter, she would still have needed documents and proof to pull off the identity swap. Gloria wouldn't have had the power to gather all that on her own. But if Luis had helped her, it would have been a different story. I stared at him and asked casually, "Which university is Gloria attending?" "She said it's a university," Luis replied. "So, it really was my school." I pressed further. "Have you seen her acceptance letter?" "No, I haven't, but Gloria's grades are excellent, so it's not surprising she got into a university." Luis's expression seemed genuine, calm, and unconcerned. There was no hint of guilt or hesitation. But that didn't mean much. In my previous life, he had lied to me just as easily, wearing the same composed expression. I needed to get to the bottom of Gloria's college situation. The easiest way to find out if she had actually gotten in was to ask around. There were plenty of people from Gloria's hometown living nearby. Tomorrow, I'd ask someone to help me look into it. Chapter 12. Early the next morning, I was woken by the sound of knocking at my door. When I opened it, Luis was standing there. "I've made breakfast. Come and eat," he said. I nodded curtly and walked past him to wash up, my attitude cold and indifferent. Luis followed me, trying to start a conversation out of thin air. "What's the meaning of the checkmarks on your calendar?" "Nothing," I replied flatly, noticing my aloofness. Luis stared at me as if trying to read my thoughts. I ignored his gaze and sat down at the table to eat, focusing on my meal as if he wasn't there. Luis sat down as well, watching me while eating his own breakfast. It was clear he had something to say, but I wasn't interested in making small talk with him. Once I finished eating, I stood up abruptly. "I've got something to do. I'm heading out." "I'll go with you," Luis began, surprising me with his sudden eagerness to tag along. But I cut him off. "You should check on Gloria instead. See if she's had breakfast or needs you to take care of her. After all, you promised her brother you'd look after her. If anything happens to her, how would you explain yourself?" Without waiting for his response, I left quickly, not bothering to look at his expression. I headed to find someone in the unit who came from Gloria's hometown to ask about her family's background. Her brother was a martyr, so plenty of people knew about her family. It wasn't hard to get information. The person I spoke to was a military spouse who was close to Sandra. "I know her family," she said. "The son was an outstanding person. Everyone speaks highly of him. But Gloria and her mother? They're a whole different story." The military spouse went on to tell me that both Gloria and her mother had terrible reputations. Gloria didn't even finish middle school before she started running wild. A girl like that going to college? That's a joke. "Are you sure?" I pressed. "Of course." Gloria was in the same class as my youngest son. Her grades were awful, barely passing anything. She dropped out of middle school, for crying out loud. And during the college entrance exam season, she injured her leg in a bike accident and stayed home recovering. How could she have possibly taken the exams? It's not just me saying this, plenty of us military spouses know about it. If Gloria hadn't even graduated middle school, there was no way she could have qualified for the college entrance exams. And if she never took the exams, how could she have been admitted to college? The answer was now crystal clear in my mind. Gloria's admission to university wasn't legitimate. Chapter 13. Feeling unsettled and frustrated. I returned home to find both Luis and Gloria there. Gloria's eyes were red and puffy, she'd clearly been crying. I said nothing, walking straight past the two of them and heading to my room. A few minutes later, Luis knocked on my door. When I opened it, he looked at me and asked, "Did you submit the marriage report?" I hadn't expected him to bring this up, and I instinctively replied, "Yes, of course." Luis studied me carefully. "It's been so long since you submitted it. Why hasn't there been any response? By now, it should have been approved." My heart skipped a beat, but I quickly covered it up. "I'll go ask about it." Luis wasn't convinced. "Let's go ask together, and while we're out, we can pick up a few things for the wedding." I couldn't find a good excuse to refuse him. If we actually went to inquire, the truth would come out, and I'd be exposed. I had to come up with a way to dodge this. While I was mulling it over, Luis added, "I just had a talk with Gloria. I'm planning to send her back home in a few days." I looked up at him, surprised. "Why?" I thought about it carefully. Luis began, "It's understandable that you're upset and have your suspicions. It's not exactly appropriate for me to be taking care of an unmarried young woman like Gloria." For a moment, I thought he'd finally come to his senses and realized his mistake. But then his next words hit me like a bucket of ice water. "Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Gloria wants to go to college, but she didn't pass the exams. She's hoping to use your spot." I stared at Luis, speechless, as he carefully chose his words. "I thought that since we're about to get married, you wouldn't need to go to college anymore. Plus, I owe Gloria's brother a debt of gratitude, and this would be a way to repay it. It would also prevent further misunderstandings between us." I clenched my fists, trying to control the urge to slap him right then and there. "And how exactly would that work?" I asked coldly. "From what I've heard, Gloria's grades are terrible. She doesn't even meet the qualifications for college admission." Luis hesitated for a moment before replying, "Gloria's idea is to use your name to go to college." Even though I had already suspected this, hearing Luis confirm it with his own mouth still left me in disbelief. I looked him straight in the eye and asked slowly, "She wants to use my name? To impersonate me? You do realize that's illegal, don't you?" Luis faltered under my glare. After a moment of silence, he said, "If you don't say anything, and I don't say anything, and Gloria doesn't say anything, then no one will ever know. And what if someone does find out? There's no such thing as a perfect secret. Besides, you're a soldier. If you participate in this kind of fraud, how will others see you? How will you keep your position?" My words made Luis pause. I had hoped that, considering his career and reputation, he'd realize how serious this was. But I'd overestimated him. Love, it seemed, trumped all logic. Luis must really, deeply love Gloria, enough to risk everything for her. After a long silence, he spoke again. "Elena, this will stay between the three of us. As long as we keep quiet, nothing will happen." I was dumbfounded. I hadn't thought Luis could be this shameless and devoid of principles, all for Gloria's sake. Furious, I shouted, "I won't agree to this. Absolutely not. Why should I pay the price for a debt you owe? I will never give my spot to Gloria, not to her or to anyone else." Chapter 14. My conversation with Luis ended on a sour note. I felt like I was choking on rage, unable to stomach the shamelessness of Luis and Gloria. In my previous life, they had secretly schemed behind my back. I'd been completely in the dark, only discovering the truth on my deathbed. In this life, seeing that I was more cautious, they had the audacity to confront me directly, expecting me to willingly continue being their pawn. They were dreaming if they thought I'd let that happen. I couldn't stand another minute in the same house as Luis. No matter what, it was time to lay everything on the table. I wouldn't marry him. The wedding was off. Whatever entanglement he wanted to have with Gloria was his business. I wouldn't waste even a fraction of my energy on either of them. I packed my things, determined to leave. That was when Gloria came in. "Elena," she said smugly as she stepped inside, "Luis asked me to get your college acceptance letter." I laughed coldly and stared at her. "Why should I give you my letter?" Didn't Luis tell you? Gloria said, looking down at me with an air of superiority. He doesn't like you. He's being forced to marry you. If you don't hand over your acceptance letter, don't even think about marrying Luis. And who said I want to marry Luis? I retorted, my voice icy. If someone wants trash like him, a man without principles, they can have him. I certainly don't. I locked eyes with Gloria and added, enunciating each word clearly, take the man if you want. But as for my college acceptance letter, stop dreaming. There's no way I'm giving it to someone as despicable and shameless as you. Gloria's face flushed with anger. She pointed her finger at me, clearly ready to argue. But she suddenly shifted tactics. Luis and I really have nothing going on, she said, her tone softening in a calculated way. You can't accuse us like this. I don't care what's going on between you two. I snapped. You're both hypocritical, shameless trash. And honestly, you deserve each other. Just do everyone a favor and lock yourselves away somewhere. Stop ruining other people's lives. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Luis storming in, his face dark with fury. Elena, what the hell are you doing? He barked through gritted teeth. Why haven't you submitted the marriage report? Chapter 15. I hadn't expected Luis to actually follow up on the marriage report. But now that he had, there was nothing left to say. Why didn't I submit the marriage report? Don't you already know, Luis? I snapped. You want me to marry you so I'll give up college for Gloria? How shameless can you be? Do you think you're some kind of prize? Do you think you're worth me giving up my education? Let me make it clear to you, Luis, I'm not marrying you. And as for my college acceptance letter, don't even dream of getting it. I'd rather die than give it to either of you. I thought Luis would explode in anger after hearing me say that. But to my surprise, he remained calm. It was Gloria who reacted, bursting into tears. But Luis, you promised to take care of me. You said you'd always look after me. Gloria cried pitifully. I looked at the shameless pair with cold disdain. Whatever you two want to do is none of my business anymore. I'm leaving right now. Luis, our engagement is over. Luis panicked and moved to block my way. Elena, it's not what you think. Please, let me explain. Right in front of Gloria, Luis swore firmly. I'm only taking care of Gloria because I promised her brother. There's nothing romantic between us. The only person I want to marry is you. I laughed bitterly. Isn't this the same man who wanted me to hand over my acceptance letter so Gloria could impersonate me? Luis, save it. I don't believe a single word you're saying. I stared him down. Let's not play games. Luis, do whatever you want with Gloria. I don't care. I just want to call off this engagement. I was resolute, and my determination clearly frightened Luis. He shouted at Gloria to leave, likely planning to calm me down. But my mind was made up. Without hesitation, I packed my things and walked out, ignoring Luis's protests. I found a small inn and rented a room. To my surprise, Luis tracked me down and followed me there, insisting on talking. I refused to open the door, so Luis stood outside, trying to plead his case through the door. I was wrong. Elena, please, forgive me, he begged. I'll make it right. I'll send Gloria away. But no matter what he said, I remained unmoved. I didn't care about his promises. I had made up my mind. I was determined to end this engagement, no matter how messy it got. What I didn't expect was how drastically things would change overnight. The next morning, I was startled awake by loud knocking on my door. It was Sandra. Elena, something big has happened, she exclaimed, breathless with urgency. Gloria and your fiancé, Luis, they've been caught in bed together. Chapter 16. Luis and Gloria were caught in bed together, both completely undressed. This wasn't a minor incident, it quickly became the talk of the entire compound. Apparently, Luis had somehow forced himself on Gloria the night before, and the situation was exposed when a military spouse knocked on the door and caught them in the act. When Gloria woke up, she cried hysterically, putting on the perfect image of a victim and demanding to report the matter to the authorities. When I arrived to witness the commotion, Gloria's eyes were red and swollen from crying, her face a picture of grievance. Luis, on the other hand, looked absolutely miserable, his face twisted in an expression so sour it was almost laughable. Luis spotted me standing in the crowd, watching the spectacle unfold. He opened his mouth as if to speak to me, but with so many people around, he couldn't say anything. Such a scandal wasn't something to be taken lightly. This was considered improper conduct, enough to warrant disciplinary action or even dismissal. Luckily for Luis, since I hadn't submitted the marriage report, I was technically not his wife or even officially his fiancée. As long as I didn't raise a fuss as the wronged party, the matter wouldn't escalate into an official scandal of improper relations. The higher-ups stepped in and smoothed things over. The resolution? Luis would marry Gloria, and as long as they kept the incident quiet, the issue would be considered settled. The day I left for my university orientation, Luis somehow found out and showed up at the train station. "I'm sorry, Elena. I never intended to betray you," he pleaded. Desperation etched into his face. I'd already made things clear with her. I even bought her a train ticket to send her away the next day. "I don't know how this happened." He was practically beating his chest in regret, but his apologies didn't move me in the slightest. "I'm grateful to you and Gloria," I said coldly. "If it weren't for her, I might not have been able to get out of this engagement so easily. I really should thank you both. Without Gloria's interference, breaking off the engagement would have been much harder." My parents had high hopes for Luis. They saw him as the ideal son-in-law and would have never agreed to let him go easily. But because of Luis and Gloria's scandal, I had become the clear winner. I no longer had to fight against my parents' objections, and I even gained their sympathy in the process. Luis's face turned ashen. "Elena, the only person I've ever loved is you. I swear, I only want to be with you." It seemed that people always cherish what they can't have. Luis kept repeating, over and over, that I was the one he loved. He even admitted he'd realized I hadn't submitted the marriage report and had planned to resubmit it himself. He swore he wanted to spend his life with me, but I didn't want to spend my life with him. In my past life, I had suffered too much, worked too hard, and gained nothing in return. If I were to repeat that kind of life, my rebirth would have no meaning. I'd rather choose death than go back to that. I didn't respond to Luis's apologies or pleas. Without a second glance, I turned and walked into the waiting area, leaving him behind for good. Chapter 17. Life in university was fulfilling and busy. The completely different trajectory of this life compared to my previous one made me throw myself wholeheartedly into my studies. The years in university passed in the blink of an eye, and after graduating, I was assigned to a prestigious government office. When I went back home to visit my parents, I unexpectedly ran into Luis and Gloria. Luis hadn't soared to success in this life like he had in the previous one, where he'd climbed to a high-ranking position. Instead, he had retired from the military and returned home to work as a farmer. Word was that after marrying Gloria, their relationship had been a complete mess. Gloria was constantly stirring up trouble, always making a scene and leaving Luis unable to focus on his work. Gloria didn't trust Luis at all. Anytime he interacted with another woman, she became paranoid, convinced he was being unfaithful. Her constant drama eventually cost Luis his job. In my past life, Luis had climbed the ranks without ever looking back at his family, me as his wife, or even his children. But in this life, because of Gloria, he ended up staying home with his parents. Now, endless farm work and Gloria's ceaseless chaos had aged Luis by at least a decade. We crossed paths briefly at the train station. I glanced at him, then turned away without a word, walking off briskly without looking back. Later, my parents told me more about Luis and Gloria's life together. The two of them fought constantly. Apparently, their household was a battleground, major arguments every 3 days, minor ones every 2. Gloria refused to work or take care of Luis's parents. She complained endlessly about Luis's parents, calling them dirty and being openly disgusted when they were ill. Whenever they argued, Gloria would shout things like, "This isn't how it's supposed to be. My life wasn't like this before. Why has it turned out like this? It's all because you're so useless." She even claimed Luis had been a high-ranking official in her previous life and that she herself had worked in a government office without lifting a finger to do housework. Everyone in the village laughed at Gloria, calling her delusional. A life like the one she described could only exist in dreams, certainly not for someone like her. As I listened to my parents recounting, a thought crept into my mind. Could Gloria also have been reborn? Was it possible that she, remembering her past life's trajectory, had been certain that marrying Luis would lead to a good life? That might explain why she'd been willing to risk everything, why she'd tried to steal my college acceptance letter to impersonate me. When she couldn't find the letter in my room, she must have decided to use Luis instead, confident that I, blinded by love, would agree to anything he asked. But she hadn't anticipated my refusal, or that Luis would plan to send her away. Perhaps that's why she orchestrated that whole caught-in-bed performance, crying victim to secure her position. The day I left my hometown, Luis stopped me at the entrance of the village. "Elena," he said, desperation in his voice. "I had a dream about us. In my last life, we were husband and wife. We got married and even had a child. And then what?" I asked coldly, meeting his gaze without flinching. I wronged you," Luis admitted, his voice trembling. "Gloria and we never had anything between us. She stole your college acceptance letter and used it to take your place. She even threatened me into helping her forge the necessary documents. I lost my head and agreed. After that, I couldn't get rid of her. She clung to me like a ghost, refusing to let go. Anytime I resisted, she'd threaten to expose everything. She blackmailed me for decades. Elena, I don't know why it turned out this way." Luis grabbed at his hair in frustration, his regret plain to see. But I didn't wait for him to finish. Without another word, I turned and walked away. The past was the past. I had already let it go. Letting go of others is also a way of letting go of yourself. After all, people like Luis and Gloria weren't worth remembering forever.